All right, I am excited here to welcome in Andrew Cotter, a Troon native, a legendary broadcaster in his own right. For this Five Things episode about the Open Championship, we're heading to Royal Troon. This will be the 10th time that Troon hosts the Open. The last time we saw it was actually the Women's Open. Sophia Popov won the Women's Open that year. It will always hold a special place in my heart. Troon will, because I was in a hospital room during COVID with my 1 to 2 day-year-old daughter watching Royal Troon at the wee hours with her sleeping on my chest. I will never forget Royal Troon because of that. I have warm and fuzzies, even though I've never been there for Royal Troon because of the Pop-Off Women's Open. But a pretty solid list of winners when you roll through there, even underrated ones like Weiskopf. I think Stenson in 20 years will be an underrated winner at Troon. To go along with some big name winners at Troon, such as Tom Watson and Arnold Palmer, and I mean Bobby Locke was a big time player as well. So I think, Andrew, starting off, I'd love to hear a little bit about the dynamic of growing up in Troon and what it's like there.
So Royal Troon, I just call it Troon. I can't, it's where I grew up, and I grew up just a couple of hundred yards from the first tee. And so I was a junior member there. But the junior section when I was a junior was absolutely terrible. I mean, it was they had no time for juniors at all. Colin Montgomery's father was the secretary at the time, and I got on famously with him now. He's a really nice guy, but as a secretary, he was just he didn't like. I don't think anyone liked juniors. There's like quite a lot of clubs. I don't know what it's like in the US, but they frown upon juniors. And so I was a decent player. Not, I was playing off about one or two when I was 16, 17, and I never got to play the old course. We weren't allowed to play the old course. So we used to play the Portland course, which is, you'll like this, Andy, was originally, it was redone by Alistair Mackenzie. So it was, and then it kind of got lost in the Second World War a little bit and became a bit of a corruption of that. But it's a really good course. But anyway, we weren't allowed to play the old course. So I went and joined Kilmarnock Brassey, which had amazing. It's the other side of Troon. An amazing junior section. Like Gordon Sherry. Do you remember Gordon Sherry won the amateur? Huge guy, 6'8", ginger hair. He won the amateur championship and played in the Masters, and Alan Reid won the Scottish amateur. Anyway, I'm digressing a little bit. So Royal Troon it's kind of where I grew up and where I started the game. And so I've been a member pretty much since the age of 3 or 4. I think my parents joined me up when I was 3 or 4. That's when I started playing. And I've never really got any better than when I was 5 or 6 anyway. So I've plateaued at that age. But Troon's home. I don't live in Scotland anymore. I've lived in England for 20 years. But for the Open, I'll be staying in the house I grew up in, 200 yards from the media centre. It's just a dream.
That's amazing. Do you have any good Colin Montgomery father stories?
No,
but I to your point, I think there was like a seismic change in the way juniors were treated in American golf after Tiger Woods. Yeah. But like there was I think that was one of the hurdles for the game. It's so funny when you think about like the evolution of the game of golf in America, because I think it was super welcoming early on. Like it became this people were worried it was going to be America's pastime over baseball. But then I think the World War, the Great Depression, everything stalled it, and it came out. I think that's where American golf went wrong in 1950 or whatever. It came out of this like hibernation, and it was a game that is so far away from, I'll just call it your game, the Scots game. And that's where we got this warped as a
Scottish sport of business,
probably
isn't it?
Yes,
it's the sport of big business and sponsorship, and that's what it became in America. And certainly, that's a side to it in Scotland, in the UK as well. It's for a lot of people, it's an aspirational sport, not as much as it would be in lots of other countries around the world. Like in Troon, for example, there are 6 golf courses. It's a town still of only about 15,000 people, but there are 6 golf courses, and 3 of those are munis. There's the Darley, Lochgreen, Fullerton. So I grew up playing those courses as well. So golf is as much for the people playing in jeans and t-shirt and just heading out to play in the Muni as it is for the people who want to be the members of Royal Troon or whatever it might be, as a sort of aspirational thing. And having been to Scotland, if you go to the East Coast as well, St Andrews, it's a sport for all. It's very different to sort of down around London, the home counties, as we call them in the UK, where it is quite an aspirational sport. It's about being a member of a club as much as playing the sport. But I'd like to think that still in Scotland, it's about just people going and knocking a ball around a field. And that's what I like about it. I mean, to be honest, I've never really been into being a member of a club. So I'll just go and change my shoes in the car park and head out and hit some balls or whatever. I don't think you're allowed to change your shoes in the car park in Troon, but I do it away from the clubhouse. But yeah, that's what I think that's probably what golf is for you, isn't it? It's just about the joy of hitting a golf ball.
It is. I think that's when you think back to the roots of the game. I have a friend, Kevin Moore, who always says who said this once, and it sticks with me. Is like, when you think about the origins of golf, it was the whole point of golf was, here are your sticks, here's the ball, that's where you're going, get there. Yeah. Right? Like, there was none of this pomp and circumstance that we've filled the game with, and all these, like, I just think, like, it's interesting when this is an Open Championship preview, and here we are discussing the origins of golf. But when I think about like where American golf is going, it's like every day, seemingly every day, it's about like the next new high end luxe private club in American golf, and it's like, the vast majority of people grow up playing golf. Like, I just visited the course I grew up playing. I've been at home. And it's just it's amazing to me, like what I like. My memories are amazing from there. There's like a number of golf entrepreneurs that I played high school golf with that all grew up playing this golf course. And what sticks with me is like, wow, this place provided me with a golf course to play for $190 every year. It was $190 for a junior pass, and I could play all summer long. And like, one of my best friends growing up, he grew up the street from me. He owns a golf bag company, and I, started this, and we grew up riding our bikes to this public golf course every day in the summer. Yeah. And just chipping and putting, and then waiting till 3:00 when we could go play golf. And that was like my summers, like, and it's like, would either of us be in golf without that? That is the version of golf, like, to me, is like where, yeah, that's what golf is to me. And I think everything else around it is a little bit trivial to a certain extent.
Oh, and I mean, in the last couple of years, it's gone so far away from what we think of as golf. And again, we've talked about this on our golf podcast and coverage quite a lot. Is that whatever happens in the professional game with live and the separation and the nonsense that goes on. And, I was listening to the Shotgun Start today, and it was Xander Schauffele talking about, could we get, just a couple fewer dinners at the Ryder Cup? And I'm thinking, this is so far from what I think of as golf. If you ask what golf means to me, it means the memories of summer evenings, just hitting the balls until dark, or playing with my uncle, whatever it is. So I think everybody's got that association with golf that is really detached from what the professional game has become. But you're right, here we are previewing the Open Championship and how great the professional game is, and how, just waxing lyrical about what golf means to us. But then when I go to Troon, I'll see where I was hitting, we had a tiny patch of turf to hit balls on as juniors at Troon, and it's pretty much underneath where the practice ground will be for the Open Championship. And I'll see these guys pounding balls 330 yards. And I think there's where I just spent ages trying to hit just a 9-iron or something like that. But when you see how big the Open Championship is now as well, it's become so vast. And I noticed it really for the first time properly at Hoylake last year, which I didn't, I'm actually a big fan of the RNA, but I think the Open's become, can something be too big or too commercial or something? I just think it's interesting because, you can't go back to the past and you can't get stranded in nostalgia. But I look at all the Open Championships I've been to as a fan and then as a broadcaster, and it seems quite a different beast now. It seems to be a sort of, almost sort of a money making thing with golf attached to it. My memory goes back a long way. My first Open that I can really remember wasn't the first one that I was at. The first one I can really remember properly was the 1982 Open at Troon when I was 8-9 years old. And I just remember running here and there. And we used to have a thing called the exhibition tent. And it was all these local golf traders, not local, small golf traders would come and, there'd be people who'd sell head covers or people that would sell golf snacks or people who would sell a thing they'd invented themselves in a garage or something like that. But it was just such good fun. And then running out here, there and everywhere and watching Tom Watson, Nick Price blow it with quite a dodgy moustache. But I hope that for youngsters watching it now, it still maintains that charm because it's a huge event and the machinery around it now and the infrastructure that's built. But I hope it still maintains that sort of charm that can drag in youngsters watching it to say, this is quite special.
I mean, I think you hit on some interesting points, and this wasn't, we traditionally do 5 things, but like, I think one of the most compelling aspects of the Open in general is like where it's going. And obviously in America, I think we have the opposite problem of like knowing exactly where the U.S. Open's going for the next 50 years.
Yeah. Was it Pinehurst in the year 3327 or something like
that? Yeah. But meanwhile, in the Open, it seems like we're at this stage where it's like how many venues can conceivably host this tournament that's become so big. It's the size
Lytham's
of it.
Lytham's gone for that reason. Turnberry, irrespective of the Trump thing, Turnberry had gone really before Trump took over because it wasn't getting the spectator numbers and it didn't have the accommodation around. Apart from the hotel down at Turnberry, there's nothing. And it's the best course. It and Port Rush are probably the 2 best courses, but it won't host another Open Championship. And you're right, it's become a thing where you've just got it right. What course has got the best roads coming in, the best rail, the best air access, and what has got the most space that we can put all these things on? So those are the determining factors for venues now.
Yeah, and I think you hit on an awesome thing with the idea of like just like a someone who has a gadget coming in, like an exhibitor's tent. Like, they have all these tents, but they're all for very high purchase amounts, right? It has conceivably it has without a doubt lost some of that charm. I think, I hope I just, when I think about the Open, I think about being a kid on summer break in America and waking up way earlier than I ever would conceive in the summer to run down and turn on golf and just laying on the couch all morning watching golf. And I think you see like kind of that charm. Like I think about like the St. Andrews Open where while the finish is happening, people are jumping over the burn, maybe breaking legs, trying to do it, but running up that fairway. Like, I think there are moments of it, but it does, and this is true about every major. I mean, this is one of the U.S. Open conundrums. It's like Pinehurst is a great venue because we can put tons of people out there, right? And other places maybe don't have the infrastructure space. The Ryder Cup would be a perfect example of this, where they have gone from you look at the early Ryder Cup golf course hosts to where they host now, and it's like, what happened?
Oh no, the Ryder Cup is just extraordinary, and they've got too many dinners for the players. The poor players have to go to these dinners.
That's right.
I've been in one of those. I've been in one of those crushes. One of these charges down the 18th. I've been in a couple of them actually, but the one I really remember was 86 at Turnberry, which is obviously just half an hour, 40 minutes south of Troon. And when Greg Norman won, and he was caught in that crush, and I remember seeing him. He was just sort of coming up just beside me in this crush, trying to push his way through to emerge with his hands held up and his shock of white blonde hair and everything. And I just remember being so excited by it. It was incredible. They don't really. I think St Andrews you can get it, but you'd struggle to get because everything's so barricaded off in the 72nd hole now. They have barricades. I mean, pretty much down the length of the hole now. So that's
they barricade the media. They barricade.
Oh,
it's
man,
like if you don't have the right media credentials,
you've got to get
70-second
hole accreditation. Your armband that has done you for the whole tournament won't do you for the 70-second hole. So that's another thing as well at Troon, because Troon is actually the course on the open rota where you see the sea the most. It's the most. If you think of all the other courses on the rota, because Turnberry's not on it anymore, where you really are right by the sea, you hardly see the water. You're by the sea, but you don't see it. Whereas in Troon, the first few holes, you're right beside the beach. I mean, the first tee at Troon now is fantastic. It's right on top of the beach almost. But they have to build a fence all the way along the first 6 holes, because otherwise people just wander in off the beach and say, I'm not going to pay. I'm just going to wander in and see if I can see some golf. So, it just becomes, I think all courses that host big tournaments become so different to the courses they become almost unrecognizable. I mean, I've been up there quite a lot over the last 3 months, and you've seen the stands going up and everything getting ready. And when I go back this week, it's going to be quite something. But it's, are you going? You're going over there, aren't you?
I'm not going.
Is Brendan going? Is anyone going from the?
No, we are not. We're dropping the ball. It's been a busy year.
Exactly. No, I suppose that is the case. But you usually get a house sponsored by someone, so just filled with shoes.
An Airbnb. Some more the Echo House. You remember? There's good little sponsor plug there. But I think what's funny about what you said in getting at the core of this is that ironically, like when I think about like my youth, I snuck my way into a fair amount of tournaments. Yeah. Like you find like there's a housing, a cul-de-sac, and they don't fence there. We can sneak in over here.
It's impossible at the Open, America. Absolutely impossible.
Well, what I think is the people that are sneaking in on the beach are the exact people that you want at the tournament to invoke that local charm. Nobody's coming up from London, or flying over from America without the ticket and say, it's okay, we're going to sneak in from the beach. We're going
to clamber over the railway line. That's the thing. Troon's protected on one side by the railway line, but other side by the sea. So you've got to be pretty committed to your felony. It's a shame you're not going to be there. I was waiting for you to say, describe how you're beside the Pacific Ocean or something like that, and just to say, it's all one sea. It's all the same sea. What is the Firth of Clyde? What are you talking about? Is this not the Irish Sea? No.
Is that not a good take though? That all these seas don't really matter. They're just all one big ocean.
It is all one big ocean, technically. Yeah, it's all joined up, I suppose. So just it's a sort of Pangea ocean that. Absolutely. I think we should start that. It's just Super Ocean One. Let's call it that.
My Pacific Ocean's the same as whatever sea the Troon's next to.
We're all swimming in the same sea, he said philosophically. Yeah. So
What's your favorite childhood memory from Troon?
I think it would be that 82 Open, just because it was such good fun, and again through the sort of haze of nostalgia, it was sort of always sunny. Well, I think it was quite a sunny Open. 73 Weiskopf was not. I think I was born on the day after Weiskopf won that Open, and that rained quite a lot. But 89 as well, I had quite good. I worked in the pro shop. Troon's Pro had a pro shop set up, and I remember selling. I was 16 years old. I remember the excitement at selling a Troon sweatshirt to Brad Faxon.
Oh my God.
That's how exciting it was that I recognized. Because, when you saw American golfers come over, I remember seeing Bill Rogers in 82. He was the defending champion. And you were just a very exotic species, Americans, to us in the UK. And so I saw Bill Rogers and I thought, my God, he looks amazing. And he did actually look amazing, Bill Rogers. That wasn't what I thought when I saw Brad Faxon, but it was still nonetheless, I thought, that's Brad Faxon. I think it was like his rookie year or something. He was quite a young gun on tour at the time, Brad Faxon. And the playoff, because it was the first 4-hole playoff with Calcavecchia, Wayne Grady and Greg Norman. And I remember in particular in that playoff, they used to have in the tented village to the right of the 17th and 18th, there was a huge screen playing out coverage for people who were in the tented village. And Greg Norman, when he went into the bunker in the playoff on the 18th, and his chances were going. He had no shot at all. But the volume was turned up full on the screen. And Peter Allis, the great BBC commentator, was saying, well, what he's got to try and do here is just get his weight onto his back foot and pop it up. But this was booming out across the 18th fairway. And Greg Norman's gone, he's trying to tell me how to play the bloody shot. And that sounds nothing like Greg Norman, but it's my best attempt at an Australian accent. And then I think he ended up knifing it over the back or something like that after, from a second bunker or something like that. So it's had some unlikely winners as well. Cal Quebec with his Ping Ai 2s and Todd Hamilton, most of all, just hybriding his way around.
The Sonar Tech hybrid. Remember the Sonar Tech?
That must have sold a lot for...
I mean, this was no Todd Hamilton gimmick. I will hear no Sonar Tech slander.
Really?
Sonar Tech made the greatest 3-wood maybe ever made.
Really?
Ever made. Yeah.
I never used it. He just basically took the premise that it was a little bit like Tiger Woods at Hoylake or at Lytham when he tried to just stay short of the bunkers. So, the Troon is a pretty well bunkered course. And he was in one bunker in 72 holes, Todd Hamilton. And everyone says, Todd Hamilton, what a duff winner. If you look at the leaderboard behind him, it was Vijay Singh, it was Retief Hussain, it was Phil Mickelson, and obviously it was Ernie Els in the playoffs. So he beat some titans. That was the first year that Phil Mickelson actually worked out that he could play links golf. Rick Smith was his coach at the time, and he got him to tighten up his swing a little bit. And Mickelson said even though he didn't win that year, he realised that he could win the Open Championship after that. So I enjoyed that. That Open was good. I wasn't enamoured by the Mickelson-Stenson. I thought it was fantastic from those two, but the weather wasn't great. It had been great on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then it kind of got soft and rainy. But, even in the soft, wet conditions, yes, Stenson was 20 under, Mickelson was 17 under. But then you go back to third place, 6 under. You remember who was third place in that Open?
We were talking about this the other day in a team
pace
meeting.
Car.
It's a good, yeah.
The pace
JB
car.
Holmes. JB
Holmes. Oh.
I mean, what was his more famous finish? The third at Troon, or when he was standing on the first tee at Portrush, couldn't decide what club to hit?
What was
taking 2 minutes?
The famous one where they showed him. They cut him up in some big tournament, and he was waggling and just backing off. And eventually they just cut away from him, went to another golfer. They just said, well, had enough of JB Holmes.
It was Augusta. Augusta. They went to the flowers. They went to cut to azaleas.
Let's just show some azaleas instead of JB Holmes. Oh, God.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so anyway, Troon is special to me because it's my hometown as much as anything else. And I just want it to be a good Open because of that. It will always be my hometown. Always, wherever I live. As I say, I've lived in England for 20 years, but Troon is always home to me. And so I just want it to be seen in the best light. And when you stand on the first tee on a nice day and you're looking across the Isle of Arran and across the Ailsa Craig and, the sea's sparkling. I hope they have. The forecast isn't too bad as far as I can see from this distance out. I think it's going to be breezy as well, which that's what you want in links golf because that's the only defense links courses have is a bit of breeze.
Firmness and breeze. Yeah. Those are the only two things.
Yeah, and it's firm enough, I think, at the moment, even though it's very, very green. I've been talking to my brother about it, who's ended up, he's caddying it again. He's caddying in every Open at Troon since 89, I think.
That's amazing.
And he always ends up steering a journeyman through, to make the weekend. There was an American called John Kernahan in 1997 who played 4 rounds. Spike McRoy. Spike McRoy.
Spike's, I don't know if you're a shotgun start. That's at that point. Spike McRoy is a big time shotgun start.
I didn't know about that.
Feature.
No, I think he works in the city in New York. He works in finance or something like that.
No, I think he's a real estate real estate guy in Alabama.
Oh
or
my
something
God! Okay,
like
that's not a finance guy in New York.
You know what? He was playing the Barbasol a few years ago.
Of course he was. Everybody gets to play the Barbasol. I've nearly played the Barbasol. God, me and Jimmy Walker.
Spike McRoy. I can't believe he caddied for Spike McRoy.
Yeah, and then a Korean Sumin Lee, and he's got Kazumi Kobori, who is the outstanding amateur. And
that's his bag this year.
And that's his bag this year. So he's on his bag. He's turned pro, and he's finding it, I think, a bit more difficult. It's amazing how great amateurs who don't necessarily, find that transition to oh, suddenly you're playing for your living. So he's on his bag. And he got asked, I'll tell you, he got asked, I don't know if it's happened yet. I contacted him. He said he's just waiting for. I don't think it will happen because these things seldom do. But he got contacted by someone who had been spoken to by Bryson DeChambeau's team. Said, "Would you walk the course with him to get him used to?" So still Bryson and his caddy, but they asked my brother to walk the course and point out various things and say do the mathematics and everything. So that's interesting. I think that's Have you come round to Bryson? Are you a I think
I don't know. I think I think the latest Mike Scheid drama has pushed me back to this might have just been a good PR school.
Listen. I think he is I haven't. First of all, I haven't heard about the Mike Scheid thing, so I've been lost in a world of tennis. So you're going to tell me about that in a minute. But he, when you see him, doing everything with the crowds and winning them over. Of course, it's a PR thing. But I suppose to the crowd, it doesn't really matter because it's a bit like Mickelson. Mickelson, won over the crowd, but, Mickelson's not really like that. But the crowd don't care because if they get a handshake from Mickelson and a high five and a little thumbs up and a smile, then they go home happy. So, but the thing about Bryson DeChambeau is at least, he is interesting. He's fascinating to watch, and you need that. You need someone who's a bit different. You need someone who people might think, oh, he's a bit of a tool, or you might think he's great, but at least people are thinking about them. So that's what that's people engaging with them.
Well, we're going to get into the 5 things now. I got Bryson as one of mine. He obviously, I think he's one of the most fascinating players in the sport, maybe the most fascinating.
Yeah.
In terms of everything, the way he's changed, the way the way his game has changed from when he was an amateur to now, to the YouTube presence, I think is a legitimate thing in today's era and with where the game of golf is going. I think the Mike Scheid drama is that Bryson allegedly was supposed to fund this golf tour for junior golf in the Central Valley of California. That's called that was named after his father, right, through Mike Scheid, his longtime his coach from childhood coach, and Bryson didn't write the check apparently, and then Mike Scheid took to Instagram with some very inflammatory comments, and then furthermore Adam Schupak from Golf Week called him up and he just let it rip. And then Bryson let it rip back. So now that we've got this big squabble between
I miss so much on social media because it's I'm on it, but trouble is when you start doing tennis, you just get recommended. The algorithm on Instagram just says, oh, you like tennis, don't you? Because you've clicked on one thing to watch it. So it's just been sending me endless things. Look at this Yannick Sinner forehand. Say, no, I want to see Mike Scheid and Schupak and DeChambeau having a spat.
So it's a huge article. It's crazy. There's all these quotes. Mike Scheid said something along the lines of, he always says that I'm his second father, and it's he treated his real father like shit, and he treats me like shit. That's paraphrasing the quote, but effectively that. Anyways, there's that thing going on. But with Bryson, I think we saw at Pinehurst, we saw him conquer a type of setup that we never thought he would set up well for. The firm, fast, rolling off all direction. When the ball hit the ground, it was a little bit, dicey as to what's going to happen. And I think when you look at his Open Championship record, it's not good. T33, cut, T33, T8 at the old course.
Was it Carnoustie where he was just having his meltdown on the range? Carnoustie.
Yes.
Those were the days. That's entertaining. Maybe it's the wind. Maybe it's windy conditions though. So that is the variable that in his computations. I'd love to. I think that because Pinehurst wasn't. There wasn't really. There was a bit of breeze, wasn't there?
Not real wind.
No, exactly. So that's the thing, because you've got firm linksy style conditions at Pinehurst, but you didn't have the wind, and that's to me what will be fascinating watching him try to cope with if the wind gets up to 20 miles an hour or whatever.
Yeah, so I think this is the last frontier for Bryson. We saw him have some success at Augusta this year. That's always been a big question mark. Can he play Augusta? He entered Sunday with a chance to win. Pinehurst, he wins. He nearly wins the PGA, and now this is the kind of are we seeing? I think if Bryson plays well, say he won this, there's a real question of is he the best player in the world actually?
Yeah.
Even with all that Scottie's done this year, I think there's a lot of doubt as to who the best player in the world would be. So Bryson to me is just, he's such a fascinating character. I think we don't have enough polarizing characters. We were talking before we started this recording about tennis and men's tennis, and what Novak Djokovic is, the interest in him is that people feel very differently about him, and there's not many people in the middle.
No.
You either love him or you either hate him, and
you need
I think that
you need it.
Yeah. You have to have that in sport, and I think Bryson fills that bucket so well for golf.
Well, the worst thing, because you cannot have in sport, the worst thing is people just going, I don't care, really. I don't, it doesn't bother
like
me.
Xander?
Exactly. And, it feels like I don't slights on quite a few golfers, and it's not a slight really against them as people. I'm not saying they're bad people, but all sport is entertainment and engagement. That's what it is, really. You've got to invest in the players and want them to win or want them to do badly but you can't have just meh. And there are a few players who are just meh. But the trouble is golf lends itself to meh, because being meh and being on an even keel and being quiet and calm, that makes good golf quite often. But what you really want is someone who's having histrionics and just meltdowns or chatting to the crowd or whatever it might be. But you
just described Bryson.
Let's describe Bryson. Exactly. So now I might look at Bryson and go, this is 100% phony, but it's good phony if it is, because people care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's something you're looking forward to or watching for?
It's a bit of a cliche to say McIlroy, but he's fascinating in the majors because he 100% and he 100% has a mental block on the majors, because he would not, in the positions he has been at St Andrews, at LACC, at Pinehurst, 100% if those were Travelers Championships or Quail Hall or whatever it might be, of course he would have finished those off. So that's the fascinating thing for me, is watching a guy grapple the most talented physical player of a generation, or the generation coming after Tiger Woods, unable to quite do it mentally. And he'll go sail along happily for 65 holes mentally. But then that's what sport is about. It's about people who sail through in tennis, sail through every set and then come to serving it out and can't quite do it. That's sport. Sport is the closure moments and the pressure moments. So I'm really looking forward, because he's obviously playing, he's off to a good start as we record at the Scottish Open. So he's obviously, after his break, is playing well again. So I'm very interested to see how he goes. It's and there are always stories at the Open, because it's such a big field and it goes on all day, and the weather changes, and just all the little stories developing. But yeah, Rory.
Who was the kid from Liverpool that played well last year?
Oh, Matt. Oh my God,
Matt Jordan.
Yeah, Matthew Jordan. Yeah, exactly. Imagine there isn't a local member, unfortunately, who's qualified for. But yeah, stories like that. I think Jack McDonald, the guy from Brassia Junior, he was a very good amateur, and I think he's qualified. So there are lots of little stories that you just follow and see how they get on. There's a guy at so I commentate at Wimbledon with I do a bit of commentary with Liz Smiley, who is a very good doubles player from Australia, mixed doubles. She won the mixed doubles titles at various. Does
she spell it like Smiley Kaufman?
She's spelled exactly like Smiley Kaufman. So Liz Smiley. But her son has been coming to Wimbledon since he was about 10 years old, and she would introduce me to him and say, his name's Elvis Smiley. And says,
he's a stud.
Yeah, so exactly. And she said, this is Elvis, when he's 10 years old, and he loves his golf. And I was a golf commentator with the BBC. And so he was excited to meet me. Well, he said he was. And I was going, you play golf, do you, little young fella, my lad? Oh, well done to you, sort of ruffling his hair or whatever. And then he just kept getting better and better. And every year he would come back and say, what are you playing off now? I'm playing off 3. What are you playing off now? Scratch. What are you playing off now? +4 or 5, whatever. And then suddenly he and he was winning stuff. He was winning amateur events, and he's winning as a young pro. And he qualified down at Deal, which is really near St George's. He shot 67 in the first round. Yeah, he qualified. So when he was hanging on into second place behind Matthew Southgate, who was in 6 under, and he was 3 under. And then there was a group, I think he was 4 under, and there was a group under, and like he was being chased down by Brandon Grace. You know, when they have the club, so Matthew Southgate from Southport and Elvis Smiley, I can't remember what club he plays out of now, and it says Brandon Grace Stinger. He's a stinger. It's just ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen.
Anyway, it's a golf club.
It's a proper golf club, a proper ancient golf club. And I thought, Brandon Grace will come through and maybe get him. But he didn't even have to go into the playoff. He came through as second place there. And imagine that. Imagine, qualifying. Just to, be a dream for you to qualify for the US Open when you're younger, and me to qualify for the Open Championship. It's the stuff of dreams, just to get your badge to play in the Open Championship. And then he's got to find accommodation. And because you qualify so late, it's almost impossible to find anything. So you're being given a really sort of manky hotel somewhere for about $450 a night or something like that. And so they've got an Airbnb. They're doing that old risky game of Airbnb. But then you get a nice Mercedes courtesy car to take you in. Imagine that. Imagine playing the Open. It's just...
One of my favorite stories from the Open Championship at St. Andrews was we found out that Sahith Theegala, who, at the time was
staying in the student dorms. Yeah.
He was staying in the student dorms. Like tremendous. you imagine you're a volunteer, you're in the student dorms, and you see Sahith Theegala lugging his tour bag up the steps to his dorm room. Like, I mean, that's amazing stuff with these events.
And that's the Open as well.
Towns.
And I presume the US Open, well, when you go to a small town, it'll be similar. Like Augusta's entirely different, and and the USPGA obviously is different because it's the pros, but you have to really not rough it at an Open Championship, but you're not going to have luxurious hotels, 10 or 15 of them, and everything's going to be perfect. You're going to, as you say, if you go to Carnoustie, my God, Carnoustie's a wee place, and Troon's a little bit bigger, but you're going to have to not sleep in a tent, but you might end up sleeping in student accommodation. But it's just that's part of the charm of it. And it comes back to that thing that there is still charm in sporting events, that it doesn't have to be this enormous, slick, corporate, professional machine, that there is still these sort of smaller stories and all these quirky stories. It's all the little diary stories that I like throughout the week. It's when I listen to the Shotgun Start and they're saying, here's a bit of scuttlebutt for you. It's usually a bit toasty or something. In his hire cars, his rental cars, scattered throughout America. I loved that one. That's just, oh dear. But anyway, stories from the Open. There'll be loads of stories.
That one I had to sit on. That one came across my desk a long time before it was able to be released.
Isn't it great though? I can absolutely believe it with him. He just, we like, well, but that's another thing. So if you're watching someone and someone said, I'm going to this tournament, who should I go and watch? And Alejandro Tosti's playing, and I'll say, go and watch this guy, because he's going to go absolutely apeshit at something.
He's going to have highs and lows, all packed within probably like an hour span.
And then that's why, so if you said, who should I watch? Oh, this guy's high up in the rankings. Should I go and watch him? And I'll say, no, that's Patrick Cantley. What's the point in going to watch him? You'll see some really good, efficient golf, but you're not going to be entertained. It goes back to, that's why Jordan Spieth, is not the player he was, but you're always going to get something from him.
Yeah, you're going to get a roller coaster. I think that, to tie this back to Rory, and what you talked about, I think this is Rory has been a fascinating, basically for the last 8 years. Once that major drought hit 2 years, it became a big storyline.
It became
When's
a thing.
He when's he going to get his next one? And there have been some close calls. There have been some in contention moments.
And there have been some Wikipedia top 10s as well.
Lots of Wikipedia top 10s. First round struggles. I think he's kind of gotten over the first round struggles. He's gotten, and now this is the most fascinating major championship start for him since can he go back to back from his last one?
Yeah.
This is you've entered a position of, it's going to be interesting how it goes from the first tee. But like golf, I mean, we invest so much time in these golf tournaments from Thursday to Sunday.
Yeah.
When you think about the ridiculousness of the sport that you invest, how much time you invest.
But here's the thing about McIlroy is that, I mean, the first time I really noticed how much pressure he felt at major championships was when he was playing at Portrush, because this was his, a major back in Northern Ireland, and he then with an iron on the first tee puts it OB with his tee shot, and I thought, God, that is a guy who feels it. And at Troon, I remember 1997, Darren Clark had his first real chance to win a major. And the crowds that came over on the ferry from Northern Ireland, because you come over on the ferry, you get it to Stranraer or Cairnryan, which is just sort of 45 minutes, an hour down the road from Troon. He had huge crowds and huge support. And then he shanked it onto the beach with an iron off the second tee. But the crowds that came over from Northern Ireland to support him were enormous. And for a lot of people in Northern Ireland, you'd see McIlroy competing in a major. You've got Portrush, but the next closest thing will be, do you know what? I'm going to get the ferry over. I'm going to go and watch McIlroy play at Troon. So he's going to have, he gets big support in the States because he's so popular. But over at Troon, it's going to be getting close to Portrush levels. Yeah.
That's an interesting little undercard that you wouldn't even think of. I think like the thing about it is like if he plays well and he get the whole story is going to just get more and more interesting as the tournament goes on. Yeah. Because of the way things unfolded at Pinehurst. You talked, you probably missed this. He talked this week at the Genesis. Oh, I saw it.
Sorry, I saw some of the quotes. And the other interesting thing is how because he's always been the most open guy, honest guy. And he just doesn't want to do media anymore. But he's still torn between, I thought it was at the end of Pinehurst. And I know he said at Renaissance, I know he said at the Scottish, the last thing in my mind was worrying about upsetting you guys, i.e. the media. But I thought he could have taken the sting out of things a little bit. And I also wanted him to come out and just, whatever he thinks of Bryson, the way for it, yes, he'll have been absolutely devastated. Of course he'll have been. That would have been the worst loss of his career. But I kind of wanted to see him just saying to DeChambeau, well done. Because you only go up in people's estimations, and people just want to. I understand, or I don't understand how he feels, but I understand how he must have felt after that. But I just wish he'd said, fronted. I remember Norman after the '96 Masters doing the press conference, and the ultimate joke, and saying, nobody died here, life goes on, kind of thing. And I've never been a sort of Greg Norman fan, especially in recent years. But I thought that was pretty good, at least, just to front up and say, it's just a game. So I hope that McIlroy carries on being as good with the media as he has been, or historically has been. In recent years, he's got a little bit, I don't really need to do that. I'm only going to do a 10-minute preview press conference. I understand it's a pain, but I think you've got to understand that we play for the rewards we do because, I think the issue is as well, though, that they can all do their own media now, though, can't they? So the need for the media, the medium between the players and the public, isn't really there anymore. Because if I want to, I can just put out a social media.
Yeah. You have arguably more distribution than any of the media people you're talking to.
Yeah.
I think the other aspect of his media hesitancy has been the live stuff.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Where he felt like, what, everybody's just going to ask me about this stuff, and it's time that other people get asked this, and it's not just like, we'll just save all the live questions for Rory.
Yeah, because he's the guy who'll give honest answers on it. That's the thing.
Exactly, and I think that's part of it. Is that like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm going to come. I think if the questions were about golf, he'd probably answer 30 minutes of questions in a presser before, but he knows that if he goes up there at the Open, there's going to half or more of the questions are going to be about the transaction subcommittee, and And it's I don't know, it's an interesting aspect. I think there are two ways that an athlete can come out of this, right? And I think it is an interesting dynamic in the sense of a short miss where, he admitted like he effectively got out of his mental process where he started thinking about other things. And I think that anybody that's played competitive golf understands exactly how that happens. You start thinking about a short putt too much. And I think there's two ways this goes, is that you start thinking about high leverage short putts a lot in the future, or it becomes an event in your career where you go to a different level. There's almost an FU aspect of this. And for me, I think that's the fascinating thing to watch with Rory going forward is which of these two paths is going to happen, because, without a doubt, that was a moment that he will remember for the rest of his golfing career and life.
No, I mean, yeah, exactly. No, he's always interesting to watch in the majors, but I think this one in particular, because this is it again. The major season and the men's majors is so short now. It's just ridiculous.
It's wild. It's insane.
I can't cope with the fact that after next week, that's it until Augusta. I mean, I wish they'd flip it back a little bit or do something with the calendar.
Like a great broadcaster, you just led me right into my next thing, which is Jon Rahm.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, there's another guy who is great to watch because he's so combustible, so talented, so combustible, and just seems to me so utterly bored with life frustrated with life on live. But there you go. You took the money, John. So what do you want from us?
I don't know, like, if there's ever been someone where we would like, I can't think like of so say he finishes like a non-competitive 30th. We're gonna say, hey, this is the worst major year of his career, and it's right after he got this giant bag of money.
Yeah.
Now if he went out and won, which is completely conceivable, if he goes out and wins this tournament, then we're sitting at he's one win away from the Grand Slam.
Yeah, but
it is a wild juxtaposition in terms of like the way we will think of this athlete for the next 8 months based off of this tournament.
I just don't think Liv prepared. Well, Bryson DeChambeau goes against this.
Well, I think Bryson's the outlier.
He is the outlier,
I think,
totally, because otherwise, you think of so many players on Liv who. It's just such a comfort zone. And where are the real competitive juices flowing? Now, you might argue that they don't really flow on the PGA Tour anymore either. But I just think regular competition against bigger fields is a huge thing. If Jon Rahm was saying ahead of the US Open at Pinehurst, well, look at my finishes. I've not done too badly. And you go, well, yeah, but they're against. You're finishing. What percentage of the field are you? How many people are you beating? It's not. I just think it's a real shame because, I mean, I think one of the greatest shame in professional golf of late was Jon Rahm going. That was such a, oh dear, the day the music died when he was sitting there in his black bomber jacket with Liv on it, just horrendous, saying whatever they wanted him to say for a huge bag of money. But again, that's another interesting story. It's a very divisive time in golf, but it's also a very, very interesting time in men's golf because you've got all these little subplots coming together at the majors. The majors are these amazing outcrops now in golf. With everything else, you might go a bit, well, not interested in that, not interested in that. And then suddenly the majors come on and go, right, okay, here are all these threads, all these narrative threads coming back together for this 1 week. And that's why there's nothing like it.
Yeah, if the golf world comes back together, I think there's an argument that the majors get less interesting.
Yeah, there is an argument. Definitely, they have got more interesting. Not that they weren't interesting before, but they've become even more firmed up in their importance since the division because everyone wants to see the best players playing against the best players, and it just doesn't happen anymore. The PGA Tour has been denuded by Liv, and Liv is just the most nonsensical piece of rubbish you've ever. It's just as a competition, you just think, well, because you don't care, and I don't think the players really care, because you want to win the great titles in the game, and whether you win 3 or 4 million for winning, or whether you win 130,000 or whatever it is for finishing last, I don't think they really. I'm sure they do care a bit about the extra money they can earn. But, they're all so vastly wealthy now anyway, the top 20 players, certainly.
I think the thing, too, about Liv is that all the for the most part, I brought this up on our podcast last week with Joseph Lamagna, is that of all the to me, it seems like Bryson, why he might be the outlier is he has taken the money and he's invested it back into himself. Like he's producing one-of-one clubs,
Yeah.
He's developed, like, that comes with a cost. To me, everybody else is taking the money and buying a bigger house, buying a bigger boat in one player's case.
Yeah.
And for the most part, like that takes away, that leads to more time in said house, more time on said boat, maybe a lot, maybe it's more time on said boat than the golf course. And when you do that, you're at, this bag of money has deterred. I think Bryson's the only one that's taken the money and maybe gotten better. And used it like a company would use an infusion of cash, where they aren't taking it out and putting it in their pockets. They're putting it back in the business and developing something. So I think that's the difference, is that from what I've heard is that Jon Rahm kind of like went away and came up for air, and it was like, it was like, oh man, the Masters is coming up, I better start working.
Yeah. But the other thing about Bryson DeChambeau is he's a zealot. His enthusiasm for everything, whether it's 3D printing his clubs or YouTube or whatever, he is, for better or worse, he is enthusiastic about everything. He's got a real energy, and so that will drive him to. I think you contrast Bryson DeChambeau with Dustin Johnson. Now, Dustin Johnson has always just wanted a nice, comfortable life, and just wanted the nice things. And I applaud him for that. He's never pretended he's anything else, Dustin Johnson. So, and I kind of warmed to him for that. It's just, well, I don't even want to play golf anymore. I've got things. I just want to go fishing.
I think that's the thing. I think the thing is he saw this and he said, I'm going to be done playing golf. I'm going to be a dad and fish, Well,
yeah. I mean, and fair play to him. Whereas Bryson DeChambeau has, I can't work out if Bryce, not that it matters either way, but I can't work out how really sort of bright he is or otherwise, because we're told he's this great physics major, which he didn't.
Biggest question.
Well, it interests me. I don't know why, but anyway, I think he's got an inquiring mind. I don't know how much that mind answers those inquiries, but he's got something which he wants to try different things and do different things. And again, that all adds to the engagement. And the YouTube thing is interesting because that is the way that golf media is going. Like, I don't know what in the States, I don't know what it's like, but in the UK, certainly sponsorship is going to our golfing YouTubers now rather than professionals, rather than touring players. Because if you want eyes on a product, where are you going to go? You're going to go to the guy with 3 million subscribers on YouTube rather than the person who's finishing 50th in a tournament, even though they're at a totally different level of as a golfer, the tour players, they're just not getting the exposure. So, I mean, we were talking about it on our pod, the regional qualifying. And again, you can tell me if they did this at the US Open, but the amount of YouTubers saying, I'm going to try qualifying for the Open and making content out of it, knowing that they're never going to qualify, but then sort of sitting down after they've shot 84 and going, wow, the heartbreak, honestly, I didn't quite have it today. Put that out on YouTube and get the views.
I think it's kind of bullshit to do that as someone who formerly played amateur golf.
Yeah.
I think it's bullshit to that you're playing partners to do that. Like, you're playing with guys and you're going to be running around with your camera guys. Like, I think that's a raw deal for the
that
guy that plays with you.
Yeah, that is one thing that I thought about it when I was watching it, because, God, they were really professionally filmed. There's sort of three in particular. And I thought, these guys who are playing with you probably were entering genuinely hoping to make it through to final qualifying.
What's your next thing? What's your next thing about the Open? What are you most looking forward to? Is it Scottie Scheffler?
Scottie Scheffler I find very interesting because, again, the thing I love about the Open is it because it throws something different into the mix, throws these variables into the mix. And you saw it at Pinehurst that he was not, how could you have someone coming in that sort of form who suddenly wasn't really there at the US Open? And it was just because it was different. It's not just splashing out the greenside rough. And he's a phenomenal player, but I like players to be sort of tested a little bit more in there. And he's got a fantastic short game. He's a great pitcher of the ball. But I don't know. It's just, I really enjoyed Pinehurst because it created that sort of linksy feel to it, and just something different. And a lot of the players will complain and say, Scottie Scheffler just had it in his head that it wasn't really fair if you hit it offline. Yeah. That that you might get a good lie, you might get a bad lie. Well, I'll tell you what, some of the kicks you might get off the fairway at Troon, you can hit a tee shot down the middle, and you might get a kick off. So it's actually a reasonably fair links course, but in links golf, you are going to get some. You're going to get some funky bounces. So that's what golf is. It's not, it's not in a sort of in a perfect sterile environment. It's got the variables, and there's a lot to deal with in the draw because people are teeing off at 6:30 and teeing off at 4:30. The weather can entirely change. So you've got to have a bit of fortune as well at the Open Championship.
I think that's the thing, is like there is some doubt with Scheffler going into this week, despite having one of the most dominant seasons we've ever seen, in the modern era. He's been extraordinary, and he's been extraordinary against the best players in the world. But there is this question about the style of golf, and in the Open Championship, he hasn't been great. I mean, by his standards. Now, by anybody else's standards, if you went T8, T21, T23 in the Open, you'd be like, he's a great Open player. But it's not that for Scottie Scheffler with the bar he set in major championships. And I think there is like this thing is as you alluded to earlier, it's crazy that it's over, that this is the last one. I mean, if he doesn't win two majors with this year, like it kind of like, I mean, it seems like he needs two majors. Yeah, he seems like he needs two majors with everything else he's done. And I hate to say that, but like for it to rank in the upper echelons of outstanding seasons in the history of golf, if you look at it beyond, the data people will say this is one of the great seasons data wise, but from the majors are what matters in knocking two off in a year is such a small list. Yeah. And when you put two in a year plus everything else, it becomes a historic year. And and again, it's similar to the Bryson thing. Can he conquer a effective playing surface? I think it's interesting. Like I've been, you've been covering Wimbledon, but like I heard some analysts on the Tennis Channel I was watching the other night, and they were talking about how, a young player just like, he didn't have the reps on this surface to win that match. He might have, he was the better player, but he lost because the other guy had more reps on the surface. And I apologize, I can't remember who they were talking about or who was talking, but like, that's one of my questions with Scheffler is this just he needs more reps on this surface, a la Phil? Exactly.
So you think of the sort of so many of the great American players who've won Open Championships are prospered, and Tom Watson springs to mind in that, one of the quirky things about Tom Watson is that he won 75 and 77 Carnoustie and Turnberry and still didn't appreciate links golf, and he really sort of clicked after that, and he said, I got it, I understood it. And then he would come over and he'd always play Dornoch or Ballybunion or something like that before the Open Championship. Mark O'Meara was the same. They loved links golf. Tiger Woods would always play a bit of links golf. You can't just come into the Open Championship and that week and get into it. It's like, as you say, well, the grass court season, you can't come into Wimbledon, having last played on clay or last played on hard courts. You've got to have a proper build up, and you've also got to embrace the surface and the vagaries and the difference of it. So Scottie Scheffler, I know we're supposed to on podcasts have hot takes. I don't think he's going to win this Open Championship. I think he might struggle to. The Open Championship might be a mystery to him forever. I don't know, but I think he's too good a player to never challenge at an Open Championship. I wonder if it might take a calm, soft course at an Open Championship for him to sort of get into it, and then. Like you said, from Mickelson, it took a while. It took a long time. I mentioned the Open at Troon in 2004, where he first sort of understood how to do it, and he'd been around a long time before that. So, I think it'll take some time for Scottie Scheffler, but he's too good a ball striker with a swing that I just can't watch. But he's too good a ball striker to not challenge at Open Championships in the future.
Yeah, and I think like when you just think about it, might be one of the impacts of the youth era that we're in with golf. Is like, this is a kid that grew up in Dallas, Texas, and the PGA Tour plays 2 weeks a year in links. Like it's the Genesis, which the Scottish Open, which is like quasi links, and the Open Championship.
Exactly. And Renaissance isn't. Yeah, I watched the Renaissance and the Scottish Open, and it doesn't really strike me as a proper links course. So anyway, it's it's pretty soft. It's just that little bit. I don't. It's a lovely place, but it's not kind of links golf as I know it. But you're right. It's just, it doesn't give them. They don't play enough links golf. There's no doubt about that. But why would you? You don't need to. No.
Like, and I think this ties into like one of the things that I love about this major championship is when you look down the list of winners over the last decade, it's the major for the olds. This is the major where really like you can throw out. I think you can kind of throw out the predictions a little bit because you get a wide range of players. You get people that. Brian Harman won a major. I don't think it's conceivable for Brian Harman to win any other major other than the Open.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't going to win a PGA. He wasn't going to win a US Open. He wasn't going to win the Masters, right?
Well, you don't need distance at an Open Championship. You're getting 40, 50 yards a run. There's a bit of an equalization in terms of drive. Yes, McIlroy is still, if he hits the fairway, going to be 20 yards past, but it's not that big dispersal. And it's about so many different things, and
it's about shot. It's about who has shots. You have to go deep in your bag because you're going to have to hit that punch 4-iron cut from 170 that you never hit in America, and you need to just have the shots in the bag. And I think, like, to a certain extent, this tournament, I think in this era of golf, it's so figured out. It's TrackMan. It's modern technology. And I'll never forget, I used to host a podcast regularly with Jeff Ogilvy, and he said, the thing about before TrackMan is everybody walked around the range saying, I think I figured it out. And after TrackMan, everybody knew the answer. Nobody was trying to figure it out. And I think with links golf, we recapture a little bit of that old soul of golf where, it takes a long time to figure this out. And some years you have it figured out and some years you don't. And there's certain venues out here that are going to appeal to certain players and not to others. And I think for that, this is maybe the last event where, outside of maybe the Masters with the greens and the quirks about figuring out and getting comfortable at Augusta, this event, experience matters. It's a good thing. There's that great Padraig Harrington quote from a few years ago where he talked about experience isn't all cracked up to be, this is the event where experience matters. And you could see one of the older guys who you're looking at and saying, God, it would be great if that guy could get another major. Jumping to mind, Adam Scott, Justin Rose, Jason Day, those types of players. This is the event that they should have circled on their calendar every year.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And it's dealing with the whole thing, as I say, of, things everyone's looking for this perfection in terms of the numbers on their TrackMan or whatever, and everyone's looking for, and on the PGA Tour as well. You're not just sort of going to the same courses, you're going to the same hotels every week. You're going to everything's the same. Whereas you go to the Open Championship, it's not just the course that is so different, but it's the whole experience and ambience, and as I say, the accommodation. So you've really got to embrace it and sort of warm to it. Now, I'm sure that, yeah, everything is pretty comfortable for the players at the Open Championship anyway, but it's just different. It's a different thing. And if you go in thinking, whoa, this is different, I'm a bit spooked by it, then you're not going to have a chance, no matter how good a player you are. But if you're going to just feeling, oh, this is different, this is novel, this is exciting, this is great, this is fantastic, the crowds are big, the crowds are different, the crowds, whatever it is, then, you're automatically going to be doing better than 80% of the field. It's, that's what we want in sport, isn't it? That variety. I think if you ask me to say what the unique selling point of the Open Championship is that it is different to everything else. Even, people say, well, they got the Scottish Open. The Scottish Open's different. The Open Championship the courses are, you just don't get it. You don't get it anywhere else.
Well, I think that's the thing too. Is like it's kind of it's probably an American take to say you got this guy, like the Open Championship so drastically different. And I think like if you hosted the Open exclusively in Ireland, it would have a completely different feel. If it was just Irish golf's different than Scottish golf, which is different than English golf. Yeah. Right. They are drastically different. Royal St. George's is so different than Troon, or the old course, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's different culture. It's a different philosophy. And I think that's one of the unique things that I appreciate about the Open, especially with the, Royal Portrush coming back in the fold, is another almost wrinkle of diversity in the style, and the culture of golf. I think that's the thing that the Open nails more so than anything, is that, and this is what makes an impression of me as an American when I go over to Ireland or Scotland or England, is the idea of this golf culture that's so drastically different than America, and the just the way that the towns are intertwined in the golf, and that to me it seems like that's what Troon has in spades. It's 15,000 people on 6 courses, you said?
Yeah, 6.5 courses. So 7 courses pretty much. So it's it's not quite. It's similar. The Ayrshire coast is quite similar, I suppose, to the Fife coast or to the East Lothian coast. We have this. The golf has never really been sort of detached from the people. It's behind a country club wall. It's kind of just there. It's just on the land between the beach and the town. You have a bit of a golf course as well. So it is unique, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
What who's your pick? Who's your pick to win?
My pick is I'm terrible at this. I really am. Actually, the only bet I've ever had that worked was, and I don't bet now on sport, but I did have money on Calcavecchia in 1989, and it should have started me on a road to serious gambling throughout my adult career, because as a 16-year-old winning on Calcavecchia, I think it was like 66-1 at the start of the week. I don't know why I put money on Calcavecchia. It's not an exotic name. But I don't. Shane Lowry maybe is a decent pick, because again he's just very, very comfortable in what is almost a home environment for him. Again, he'll have lots and lots and lots of support, and if it is a little bit below, there's a shot maker, and there's a guy with a great short game, and the guy who more than embraces the links challenge. I think he's got as good a chance. And he hasn't really, really challenged at major since that Portrush win. But, I think if he putts away, his putting deserted him for a wee bit. But I think, there have been signs from Lowry, so why not Shane Lowry? I'm just throwing out any old name here.
I'll go with Tommy Fleetwood.
Tommy Fleetwood
finished fourth.
Tommy, I do love Tommy Fleetwood, and again, as sort of ball strikers go on, I'd love to have Tommy Fleetwood swing, and his hair, obviously. But actually, no, I wouldn't. If I had the ability to have that hair, I wouldn't have that hair. But I'm just not convinced by his putting. Although the thing is about the Open Championship is the slower greens. If you're playing in a 9.5 on a stimp meter, 10 at the fastest, really green, that sometimes helps out the lesser putters.
And not like they aren't super intricate greens. Like, I think exactly. Portrush was the course that stood out to me so much because of how they almost have like they have like a very refined green. I think, a lot of links golf is old and the greens are just in these great places and they're just on the ground.
Yeah. Well, that's what Troon, Troon is just flat, smallest greens on the open rota, very, very small greens. They've extended it. Martin Ebert did a bit of work. Obviously, Martin Ebert did a bit of work. And so they extended the greens a little bit, but some of the greens, but they're still just really tiny greens, but also there's not much in them. They're quite flat greens. They're not that interesting, the greens at Troon. But also links greens, they don't have, like, I didn't know what grain was growing up. Everything's just uniform on a links green, really. You don't get really grainy greens. So maybe that was a failing on my part. But we didn't study the grain. It's not like, your Bermuda grass where you can see it all. Links greens are fairly much as you see them. And the ones at Troon are they're so obvious. It's just there's nothing really to them. So you're right, Tommy Fleetwood. Now I'm coming round to your pick. There we are. You've won me over.
I hadn't put much thought into it. I just pulled up the OWGR and I was looking around and it just kind of stuck out to me as someone. He's had so many close calls. I don't necessarily. This is almost a bet for a top 5, not a bet to win, but.
I can give people top 5 bets. Yeah, absolutely. McIlroy storming through the field.
Everybody should check out your podcast, The Chipping Forecast. Is a great listen.
We got Eddie Pepperell. So we have Eddie on it, and Eddie. This is what golf is. Eddie was third at the Players Championship back in 2018. He finished 6th at Carnoustie in the Open, and. The ups and downs that all golfers in their career have ups and downs. And Eddie's been grappling with his golf this season and grappling with I think he thinks too much, Eddie, about life in general, which makes you a much better person.
He's too smart for golf.
Honest to, just in all sports, not just golf, you just want to be simple-minded. And so, sometimes that doesn't mean lack of intelligence. It just means lack of lateral thinking. You don't want to be a lateral thinker in golf. And Eddie's a lateral thinker, but he's too talented to be away for too long. But he's quite engaging as well. So I say quite engaging. He's very engaging. We love him. So,
thank you so much for coming on. This was a joy, and hopefully we'll have you on again. But look forward to seeing your hometown shine next week at the Open Championship.
Well, I hope it does. I'm sorry you're not going to be in a tiny little bed sit in Troon.
Well, this is what happens when you get stuffed in the radio box your first Open, and then shook down for a couple $1,000.
Oh God, yeah, it's a pricey old business traveling. So I used to do it on the BBC ticket all the time. You see, I would do US Opens, USPGAs, and Masters, and then the BBC stopped doing them. So the Masters this year. Well, I saw you over there. It was my first time in like 23 years where I was there on my own. My God, it's an expensive business. I'll tell you. I was stealing as many free sandwiches as I could to take home for my dinner.
You were one of those guys.
I wasn't one of those guys. I just heard you talking about it today. I wasn't. I was not. I'm absolutely not a hoarder from the grab and go. No, I might have taken a salad one night. That was it.
Okay. Yeah, well, we're gonna keep an eye out next year when you're over there.
Me and Dylan Fratelli. Cheers, Andy.
Right. Thank you so much.
Cheers.